Good evening, everyone. This is Elsie Kerns, Wellness with Elsie, and your Chaos to Clarity coach and energy medicine expert. We are here live with another Be Live TV presentation. And this evening, our guest is Pam Younghans, and she is a very exceptional astrologer. So tonight, Pam, I want to begin by asking you the significance of this particular full moon in Taurus, and can you also explain to us what the meaning of a grand cross is? So I'll let you take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you, Elsie. So this is a really powerful full moon. It's powerful for several reasons, but most notably because the moon and Uranus are right next to each other. And Uranus is a very powerful planet. It brings about big changes. I like to use all of the compound words that start with the word break. So break through, break down, break away, break up, all of those break words. Uranus is ultimately trying to liberate us, free us from something, and yet there can be a suddenness about a Uranus effect because we tend to hold on to things much longer than they're good for us often. And this is especially true with that moon in Taurus. Taurus is I'm a Taurus, but Taurus is a very retentive sign. We like things to be simple and the same, and to be wrenched free is sometimes what Uranus needs to do for us. So that's one reason why this is a very powerful full moon. And you did mention this grand cross configuration. So let me explain what that's about, because not only is Uranus aligned with the moon, and then on the other side, the sun is aligned with Venus, but then we also have two other points represented. So this is the chart from the Mountain Astrologer, if you can see it, just to give you an idea of what a grand cross is. So we have the sun and Venus up here. We have the moon and, sun and Venus up here. Moon and Uranus down there. Something called the south node up there, and something called the north node down there. So you can see it creates this X. So a grand cross. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about a grand cross. And it's called a fixed grand cross because it's in the fixed signs. So Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Those are the four signs that are represented. So a fixed grand cross holds a lot of tension. All of those points are like 90 degrees away from each other. And so they're forming all of this tenseness, this stress, this tense angle of a square and an opposition. And so there's to be a release point. So what we see with this kind of event oftentimes, and we've already seen it, we can see earthquakes, we can see volcanoes, we can see hurricanes. And I was just looking at the news before we got on, and this super typhoon U2 that just hit the northern Mariana Islands, it's like 180 mile an hour winds. And that just happened today. We had Hurricane Willa that just crossed Mexico. It came to land as a major hurricane. So these are the kinds of things that we often see when Uranus is involved in a big event. And it's meant to kind of shake us up and shake us out of complacency, shake us out of anywhere that we've been holding on to something too long. So what's really important about that grand cross configuration are those 2 points called the south node and the north node. Those are called karmic points because the south node shows characteristics we're trying to move away from as a humanity, and the north node shows characteristics we're trying to move towards, qualities we're developing. So it's really this path of spiritual growth for the collective. And this north node, so where we're going towards, is Leo. Leo is very heart-centered. It's very involved. It wants to belong. It wants to connect. It just brings tears to my eyes. And because that's what we're trying to do as a humanity. We're trying to come together. We're trying to Leo is also the king of the jungle. So we're trying to have leaders who rule from the heart, who rule from compassion. I always think of the cowardly lion at the end of The Wizard of Oz when I think of a really healthy Leo leader, because he was so compassionate and caring and loving, but strong and confident. And that's where we're going to in ourselves. And of course, that's what we want in our leaders. And then the South Node, I'm going to talk about some of the negative qualities of Aquarius. There are lots of also positive qualities about Aquarius, but since we're trying to move away from some of that, we need to look at that. So Aquarius can be very alienated. It's a mental sign, could be too much in its head. It can stand back. It can be aloof. It can withdraw. It can. So the opposite of that heart opening, belonging, connection, involvement that Leo is calling for. So we've got this Grand Cross thing where, Uranus is saying, you got to change. And the nodes are telling us how to change and what to do. And then the Sun and Venus over here in Scorpio, they're telling us we have to go pretty deep. Scorpio is a very depth-oriented sign. It's very emotional, but very deep. And Venus rules things like relationships. It rules what we value. And Venus is currently retrograde. That means it looks like it's moving backwards. So we're in this review phase of what do we really value? Maybe some people are going through some very strong relationship issues right now. That would be very in tune with what this Grand Cross may bring forward. And then Scorpio, well, maybe this is too much aside, but Jupiter has been in Scorpio for a year now, and this has been the time of the Me Too movement, and it's time coming forward. Scorpio rules the use and misuse of power, the use and abuse of power. It rules sexuality and those intense moments that we get into. And so we can see maybe some more issues coming forward. And actually, I looked at the NPR headlines for today just before we got on to see what was there. And there was, I think, the Cleveland Orchestra, I don't know, another more information coming forward about somebody who had misused their power in what we are now seeing happens quite a bit. So that's that Grand Cross. Is that explain it a little?
Yes, that really does explain it for all of us that don't know a great deal about astrology. So Pam, is there a way that this opening for the divine feminine fits into all of this? Because, you talked about moving toward Leo and the heart, and we're being pulled in so many different directions with the elections in November and all the things that we see happening with our leaders around the world, not just here. Right.
Well, Venus rules the feminine. Venus is strongly involved in this chart. Taurus, the moon is in Taurus for this full moon. Taurus is a feminine sign. So we do see that information included in that Grand Cross. There's a lot of tension between the masculine and the feminine in this very chart. One thing I want to mention too is that, and what you just said triggered this, made me think of it, is that Uranus is the god of chaos. So, brings a lot of change, often in chaotic ways. But Uranus, astrologically, also is a planet of higher consciousness. So there's great opportunity with this full moon to open to higher consciousness, to liberate ourselves from the restraints of whatever has been blocking us, whatever patterns have been in the way, whatever mindsets. There's just a lot of opening to the higher realms that is possible with this full moon. I also think that Taurus is, earth sign, and it rules nature. And so I feel like this full moon is also a really powerful time to use the healing tools that relate to the earth, so crystals and minerals. Taurus also rules singing, so chanting and toning and tuning forks and anything that works with our senses. This is a really powerful time this full moon is a really powerful time to use those as a part of our opening and awakening process.
So then we have an opportunity with this energy to come into higher consciousness and let all this tension kind of shake out the old and come into the new.
Exactly. And, you know, in its highest expression, that's what we can hope for. You know, and along the way, we've got, you know, things that are happening that do shake us up. So, for instance, and I was going to mention this can be an especially powerful time for people who are born in early Taurus, early Leo, early Scorpio, or early Aquarius, because the sun in their chart will be right at 1 2 degrees of their sign, and that's where this full moon is. And so I also want to say this because I want to honor her. My godmother, who was 91, she passed away yesterday. She was born in early Leo, and she was an astrologer. She was my introduction to astrology. So this is kind of an emotional day for me. I have my Taurus sun at 1 degree of Taurus, so it's affecting me very personally. She had her sun at 1 degree of Leo, so it clearly affected her. And I talked about Uranus being liberation. You know, our ultimate liberation is when we pass, when we move into another realm where we don't have these restrictions. So I wanted to say that to honor her because she's had a big impact on my life, and it fits in. You know, it's so appropriate that an astrologer with her sun in early Leo chose this time to graduate.
To graduate, yes. Well, that's really touching. And it's interesting that you had those same chart configurations and that she really just has passed on as she's left the rest of her power and knowledge to you to continue on the lineage of your whole family in healing and astrology. Yes.
Kind of a profound time. See, I'm looking at my notes to see if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about. Did you have another question, Elsie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what you seem to indicate in your weekly journal, and I want to remind everyone that you can go on North Point Astrology and you can sign up for Pam's weekly journal, which comes out every Sunday. It's free. But you really indicated how much this particular full moon and this Grand Cross configuration was going to affect everyone, like across the board. You know, every individual was going to feel this impact in some way. And I haven't heard you say quite that about other full moon situations that we've had before.
I think there's been a big build up to this full moon. It almost feels like it has the energy of an eclipse for me. Mm-hmm. It has that kind of bigger feeling about it. And so, and yes, and to have Uranus aligned with the moon in a chart that's drawn for an event like a full moon, the moon represents the public, the people. Mm-hmm. And so Uranus conjunct the moon is the public is affected. The people are affected. I know that just a couple of days ago, there were big protests in the UK about the Brexit thing, you know, so the people, it would be very appropriate to have uprisings, to have rebellions, to have people resisting the status quo and to be claiming their individuality and their voice in a new way. So in that way, it's interesting to think about this as we're leading into the US elections, because it's stirring up some of that desire for change.
Well, clearly, because all of humanity is now so connected through the internet, I would agree with you that it is easy to have more rebellion and people speaking out about how they feel, whether it's politically or, physically, spiritually, all the things that seem to be coming to the forefront now.
Right, right. And the other way that this can affect us is really very kind of personal. Now, granted, I got the news about my godmother passing yesterday, but I didn't sleep well last night. I had an upset stomach this morning. There's a lot of that kind of churning energy going on. And the moon is the emotional planet. And so we can expect that there's going to be erratic emotions right now, that we're not going to feel necessarily stable. But again, realizing that, it's kind of doing this with my hands like an earthquake or something, but it rattles us so that we look at something in a new way. We perceive in a new way. We do something in a new way. That's the intention of Uranus, and not just in any new way, but in a way that's authentic, that's aligned with higher consciousness, that is expansive and progressive. That's the energy of Uranus.
It almost seems as though this particular configuration and full moon is kind of pushing us not only to move forward, but to do it before the end of the year so we can go into 2019 with, more clarity and more purpose. And again, really higher intentions and consciousness. So very needed today.
I agree. And it's really, now that you're saying that, we have 2 eclipses in January. Oh. And so we're starting the year off right away on a, let's go with it kind of energy, and let's change and let's move. And so, yeah, I would really agree with that we're kind of in a completion. It's also really interesting. I was talking about that North and South node. They are actually just about to change signs. They stay in a pair of signs for about 18 months, and then they shift. So they're going to shift in November, which shifts our evolutionary imperative. And the North Node shifts into Cancer, which is a caring, nurturing, feminine sign. And so there is a shift. And you're right. It's not starting, but this full moon's involved in it. The nodes changing signs is involved in it, and then launching the new year with the eclipses.
So it all seems, as always, in perfect timing. And I just want to say hello to all the people that have joined: Lisa and Lynn and Debbie Gilmartin, and great group tonight: Denise, Michelle, and Supriya, Holly. And there are a lot more. I can't follow down through all the list, but we'll have the replay, and also we'll make this into a YouTube. And Pam, give us your information again so that if people would like to contact you, whether it's to get your weekly Sunday journal, or if you would like to schedule a session with Pam, you'll do that through her website as well. Do you want to give us that information again?
Sure. Thank you, Elsie. So my business name is North Point Astrology. North Point is one word. And so the website is www.northpointastrology.com. And you can go to the journal page, has a place where you can sign up for the journal, or you can always email me. It's pam@northpointastrology.com. And that's usually the best way to reach me directly. And especially if we're not in the same time zone. I'm on the West Coast, and so it's easier to connect and not miss each other because it's too late or too early one place or another.
Well, Pam, we've really enjoyed your insights, and this year has been incredible, and it seems like it's ending on a high note as well. So everyone, it was great to have you join us. Tomorrow night, I'll be back online with the Women Healing Women in the World Wellness webinar, and I'll put information up about that and how you can join me right after this broadcast. So Pam, thank you so much once again for enlightening us as to what to expect over this final quarter of 2018.
Great. Thank you, Elsie.
You're welcome. Great to see you.
Good to
And
see
thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is Elsie Kerns, your Chaos to Clarity coach and energy medicine expert, saying good night. And once again, thank you.